Good morning, everyone. Thank you again for being here on time. Um, Thank you to our two student guests here. We definitely appreciate you taking time out of your day to be here and speak. So let's get started with the approval of the agenda today. Just please look over it, and I'll give you a minute or so to look over it. Yes, actually. Thank you, Patrick. Do you mind reading that for us?
Absolutely. The mission statement of the TSAC student government is to support the evolving needs of the MSU Denver students by advocating in their best interest to enhance the university experience and opportunities.
Thank you, Patrick, for that. Alrighty. If you guys have read the agenda, then I motion that we approve the agenda.
In that
I second
motion,
that.
Alrighty. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, that's right. Give it a second. Any abstentions? Any nays, noes? No? Awesome. The agenda has been approved. It is 11:36, and just to be respectful of our guest time, that is public comment time. We will extend it for 2 more minutes since it's 11:37. So please, just introduce yourself and yeah, take it from here.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for letting me come in. My name is Mikhail. It's spelled like Michael. I've stopped by a lot in the office and doing a lot of work with some local housing nonprofits and trying to start a tenant union and just organizing to fight for some tenant and workers' rights. And soon I'll kind of give a proper presentation of essentially asking y'all for help in whatever way you can and just trying to, take advantage of y'all's resources. That sounds exploitive, but in a friendly way. And then I was also really interested to actually attend an advocacy meeting like this and actually see what the president has to say. Yeah, nice to meet you guys.
thank you, Michael.
I do see we have another attendee. I don't know if they want to.
Hi, my name is Sky Childress. I use she and they pronouns. I'm here today. I came here last week and I was able to talk to you guys about the open letter that I had a part in writing. I don't see it on the agenda, which means a counselor did not add it on time. So if it were to have a vote today, I would assume it would need unanimous approval to be added to the agenda. But I have the letter now and I want to say a few words about it. But you want to talk, so go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yes, to get it, we already approved the agenda for today. If it had been brought up by whoever, then yeah, I would have been fine. But I think we could still try to get to it at the end of the agenda if there's more time.
I guess I have a question. So a procedural question. If a counselor motions to add something to the agenda after it's already been approved, would that require a majority vote or a unanimous vote to be approved?
It would go against the Constitution to put anything on there, actually, at this point. There's a 24 hours amount, so no vote by anyone could change that at this point.
Okay.
But you can still share with us everything that you had planned. We cannot do a referendum today, but give us all of the information.
This is a different thing.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not asking, this is about an open letter. I would assume the process for you guys to sign it would be a resolution, which is sounding like it's too late to sign. But the open letter, I'm just going to read it really fast. As described in the recent MSU email, the Trump administration has begun chipping away at accessibility to education and the rights of many students, including immigrant, first-gen citizens, trans and queer, and working class students. While we appreciate MSU speaking about the need to keep education accessible and providing resources, these words and resources alone are not enough. In this letter, we'd like to discuss more concrete protections for the students of this campus, as well as learn more about the existing protections and procedures. We also demand a similar statement and concrete actions and promises from CU Denver and CCD regarding the plan to protect students as we move into this new administration. Trump's plan to close the Department of Education will restrict education access for working class and Black, Chicano, Latino, and Indigenous students. Closing the Department of Education would end federal aid, support programs, and protections for many students. What concrete plans does the administration have to keep its education accessible should this plan come to fruition? We would like to know more about the specifics of how the university's budgets would change. Raising tuition is an unacceptable response if federal aid disappears. We understand that currently it is ACPD policy to not cooperate with ICE unless they have a warrant signed by a judge. We'd further like to demand that no offices or departments cooperate with ICE in any capacity. Students for Democratic Society demands that university administrators not only support students, but defy Trump's attacks on students and education. Universities need to do the right thing by upholding and protecting DEI programs, ethnic studies, GWSS departments, and LGBTQ plus rights and programs. These schools should reaffirm their commitment to increasing enrollment of Black, Chicano, Latino, undocumented, and Native students. We also demand administrators do not hand over sensitive information about trans or immigrant students. We call on schools to not comply with book bans on students going by the right pronouns or the right bathrooms, or to discipline parents and teachers who support queer students. AHEC, which at the time, Area Campus, should direct ACPD to adopt and publish official policies reflecting these demands. AHEC, MSU Denver, CU Denver, and CCD should publish policy updates declaring their stances on protecting their students and exactly how they will do that. SDS Denver expects MSU to keep its promises to uphold the rights of education of its students and expects CU Denver, CCD, and AHEC to do the same. This is signed by Students for Democratic Society, Physics Identity and Expression Club at CU Denver, Psi Chi here at MSU, United Campus Workers of Colorado, the Wall-to-Wall Union for CU and Colorado State University, Africana Studies, the Africana Studies Department here at MSU, the MSU Denver Faculty Federation, 52 MSU students, 13 faculty, and quite a few more students from the other university as well, which is awesome. I had asked last week, hopefully having TSAC sign on to it. So I don't know what the process is, but that's the end of my comment.
That's
Real quick, just to clarify some of Sky's doubts. So for individual signatures, you can always get that. But if you want like the council to vote on it entirely, it does have to appear on the agenda, which you will have time for next week. Yeah.
However, on some of the things that, I'm also interested in hearing in further detail about your letter. I know me and some other fellow counselors have attended meetings from administration talking about knowing your rights and how us as students are going to be protected. As it is now, from my understanding, they are not going to give away any information from any of our students, immigrants or DACA alike. They're not going to be sharing any information. I know that they said that Area PD isn't going to be cooperating with ICE, and that our faculty are being informed of what to do if such a situation were to arise. However, I've been looking at the news and everything. I think it's something that would be to the council's interest in listening.
Sky. Just be aware, we do have one more minute.
Yeah. So
Hello, President.
Sorry, words. So yes, I understand there are currently many things being done. I've seen that. I also acknowledged that at a board of trustees meeting recently. This letter was calling for the protections to be outlined and made clear, even if they're already there, as well as new protections to be added as well. Thank you.
Thank you a lot. Thank you, Sky. Thank you to our other guests for being here. Yes, Amelia.
I would just quickly add, I think now that schools, along with hospitals and churches, are no longer designated safe zones, I'd be really curious to see what MSU Denver and Auraria's commitment is to not cooperate, given that schools used to previously be considered a safe zone, even though they were designated public entities. So we can work on that and see what that relationship looks like. But thank you both for coming today. I really love when students come in here and talk with us, and we can work on that for next week.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna do a quick attendance roll call, and then I'll hand it over to our co-chairs. All right, I'll start with Siobhan.
Siobhan McKinney, present.
Levi Chi, present.
Haley Glass, present.
William Coates present.
Patrick Cervera, present.
Amelia Federico, present.
Victor Delgado, present.
Susana Villagomez, present.
Perfect. I apologize for being late. Our meeting with President Davidson ran a little long. If I'm correct, you guys have already gone through public comment? Or,
Excuse me? We
Yeah,
have
Matt?
2 counselors online who have not voted
I
in attendance.
apologize. Go for it, Matt.
Matthew Rathman, present.
Michael Warner, present.
Sorry, guys. Am I correct in saying that we already went through public comment? Is that what was happening when I walked in? I apologize for not being here. If either of you guys would like to touch base with me afterwards, I answer my teams super duper duper quick. So I would love to hear what you guys had to say. Awesome. Would somebody like to do the reading of the mission statement? Or did you already do that? Perfect. I guess then, first things first, President Davidson.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Deep breath. Big couple of weeks, right? I'm really mostly here to answer your questions and have a conversation and listen a little bit. But I'll start off with what I perceive and have been told is really on your mind, which is what the heck is going on and how we're responding to this, let's just call it incoming barrage of artillery from Washington, D.C. Not to use a military analogy, but it kind of feels that way, doesn't it? So none of this was completely unpredictable for those of us who study political science. And a lot of it is concerning for those of us who study history. That said, we are one small part of the universe at this point, but it's our part of the universe. So what I'm sitting here with is how I'm kind of coping with this and trying to lead the university. Yes, we're doing a whole bunch of things, and I can tell you what we're doing, but I want to start with how we're approaching it. And our foundational sort of principles, driving principles, are to be able to stick to our values, the cadre values. They're real: community, access, diversity, respect, and excellence. So excellence for sure. You guys still need to get an outstanding education. And you think about how you might look back on this period of your life when you're my age. And what story do you want to tell? And what role did you play? Diversity is embedded into our university. There are people in this country, and there are probably people on this campus who don't really understand how we approach this. We are a federally designated Hispanic serving institution. We're a minority institution, minority serving institution. We also serve the so-called working class, and we serve all kinds of people. And if you look at it from that lens, it isn't just that we allow anybody to come here, which is one of the things that the administration is upset about, is affirmative action in admission. So we don't have to worry about that. We let anybody come here. So not our problem. But if we are going to remain an incredibly diverse place, and that's part of our identity, then the issue is how we serve those communities. And we're not going to change that stuff. So people may see, well, you can't have this club or that club. West Point's canceling all their identity-oriented clubs, like preemptively complying with whatever they think is the rule. I'm not going to preemptively comply with a rule that nobody's told me I have to do, right? So the point is, if somebody came to our university and said, you need to cancel this and that, it'd be really hard to do it because it's embedded into our culture. And so that's the starting point. The other sort of starting point for me is thinking about the role that this university plays and the unique kind of university that it is, okay? You may be reading in the headlines that other universities are sort of statutorily complying with things. They're shutting down their diversity offices. They're, I don't know, stopping work on certain grants and things like that. We haven't been ordered to do that. And schools like the big research institutions, they feel very vulnerable right now because the power to move things from Washington is the power of the purse. And it's the kind of money, that's the leverage that they have. And if you're a research institution, I don't know if you know how this works, but a good percentage of your faculty and a lot of your staff are on what they call soft money. So you're not baked into the core budget of the university. You go from grant to grant to grant. You're a researcher. You're going to like write a grant to the National Science Foundation to study some microbe thingy-mabob in your biology department. You're going to write a grant, to the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, to do statistical analysis on asthma or something, right? These people are on soft money. And if the government were to shut that off and you were the president of a university like that, you got like 15 to 50% of your people that you feel responsible for that now you can't pay. So that's why they feel really at risk. So that's kind of where we have an advantage. We do have some of those folks on this campus. And so one of the things we're doing is running the numbers to find out where those vulnerabilities are. The other, and they're not nearly as big, like they could potentially be covered by us and we could reabsorb people into the university and the faculty. That's what we're looking at. We're not going to preemptively do that, though. They'd have to cut off the funding, which they haven't done yet. The other area that I think I really worry students is federal financial aid. And there hasn't been any effort to actually do that. Am I right, Taylor? Like, we're watching that like a hawk. It's a completely different avenue and area. And, they would be stupid to do that. And they've actually said that they will not cut off individual funding. So that's where you guys should be safe, I think, on that. Now, I won't promise anything because as a historian, I never take stupid off the table. People do stupid things, but I don't think that's high on their list, right? That said, as they're running a wrecking ball through the civil service that is the federal government, and it affects the ability of the Department of Education to process things, it could just get mucked up. But we dealt with that last year when it was pretty mucked up. So again, we will be doing everything we can to make sure that despite whatever sort of turbulence comes out of that system, that we can still serve our students and do our part. It's a complicated thing, the way federal financial aid runs through from the federal government to us, to you, and then you have to apply, but then we have to, it's complicated. And the folks down in that financial aid office are angels, the work that they do for you guys. And they work around the clock. There are days when they are here all night, and that's for you. And so they will do that. I know they will, but we hopefully won't have to come to that. So that's the leverage that they have. And that's if it makes you feel any better at all, and it makes me feel a little bit better, that we have a little less exposure than a lot of these other universities. So that's that. The other piece, though, is, but we have values. So then we talked about this. So do we have choices here? We could preemptively comply and shut down a bunch of programs, which we're not going to do. We could kind of take this middle ground, which is we're going to continue to serve our students and do everything we can, just stay on course, on speed, and until somebody tells us we can't. And I mean, I don't work for Elon Musk. I work for the Board of Trustees, and they agree with me. And they work for the governor, right? Or, as some people might want, for me or the Board of Trustees to stand up on TV and make a big statement, right? Or beat my chest about how I'm not going to comply. It's an option. But let's think about the pros and cons to that option. What do you think might happen if I do that? Sky, what do you think might happen if I do that?
Am I allowed to speak on this body?
Sure.
Okay, beautiful. I think that if you stand out on TV and you say, I will not comply with federal orders, that you're now a target of the federal government.
Right. Yeah. It's like sticking your head above the foxhole and getting it shot off. You know what a foxhole is?
Yes.
It's another military thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Wouldn't the HSI label in itself put a target on our back?
Yeah, it might. So another thing we do in a time like this is we try to think like them, like they call this red teaming in corporate world and the military world. We try to think like your competitor. And so if I were the Trump administration, what would I do? Right? What are my top things? Like what they've done is gone see what sticks, and to muck up the works. But when they decide, or if they decide to get more sort of surgical, then they might do that. They might say, give me the list of the top HSIs out there. We're a damn good one. We're proud of that. It's a federal designation to be a Hispanic serving institution. Like, it's the law. I'll tell you who the biggest target probably is, though, on that score. And it's the whole California state system. And I've been talking to a lot of those presidents because they're, we draft off of them a lot of times. They do great things. And we are actually a leader in the HSI space. And I'm a member of the President's Alliance, and we're award winning. So yeah, if they decide to shut down HSI funding, that's what they would do. They would just say, we're no longer going to think about HSIs. We're no longer going to give HSI grants. I mean, part of the reason we wanted to be a federally designated HSI is because it allows us to apply for federal grants. So in our long-term strategy, we're thinking about what that means in terms of funding. It's not an enormous part of our budget. It was helpful. It's a couple $1 million here and there that helped us do a lot of good work. I'm looking at you because I know you did a lot of work on this and like transfer and things like that. We'll find other ways to fund that stuff, and we'll still do the work. We don't need the label to do the work. The label helped us get good funding. But when you say they come after us, what would they do? They would just be like, we're not going to issue any grants anymore. We'll be like, okay, we didn't have them 7 years ago. We don't have them now. We still are awesome. And we're still going to serve our students. What else? Yeah.
I think an immediate concern that a lot of students have at this moment, especially after all the news that we're seeing with the raids.
Yeah.
I remember we went to see ISP, and David Fine discussed about the possibilities and just the thought of individuals coming into our campus.
Yeah.
It's something scary. So, I know we have David Fine there on the line, but how can we expect faculty to support us in this time?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. So let me just back up a second. So in this whole thing, I think about this in 3 buckets. We just talked about the sort of the diversity and the funding buckets, right? This other one is the immigration deportation risk. And what can we do for our community? And the first thing we can and are doing and have done is provide education, like and information about, what the law is and what your rights are. And let me just reiterate some of the takeaways from that great session that David Fine and Gregor did. And, ICE cannot legally and would not just come in here and take people away. They're only taking away criminals. That's what they say. And so far, that's what they've been doing. Now, heretofore, like before this point, it was ICE policy, actually, which made it a norm and a practice, but it was policy to not prioritize churches and schools and universities. And that made us feel better. Trump went and made a big statement last week that said, we're no longer going to have that as a policy. But as we were talking about before, if you're red teaming, that doesn't necessarily put churches and schools up to the top of the list. We're still at the bottom of the list. So from a potential perspective, like when we're thinking about most likely, most dangerous scenarios, ICE cruising into a university, I don't think it's the top thing that they're going to do. But if they did, again, they physically can't get into any of our buildings without a swipe card or without somebody letting them in. And all faculty, staff, and students should know by now not to let them in, but to actually call. We were kind of joking, that they're kind of like vampires, how they're not allowed to come into the house unless they're invited. They're not allowed in without a warrant. They're not allowed in unless David Fine says, yeah, you can come in and I will escort you to that point for that person. But major sweeps, we will, I can't imagine like a scenario where that is going to happen. And then when we talk about, like, I can't promise that it's not going to happen. That would be a whole other environment. But when we talk about folks who feel vulnerable in this space, I feel like the university is actually one of the better places for them to be, more supportive. You've got people like you who care about them. You've got mental health services. You've got legal services. You've got, doors that lock. So that's kind of how I am approaching that. Okay, we got lots of fingers up.
Yeah,
President,
Victor.
we had,
Yeah.
him down
Yeah,
there this
you
unit.
you say who's first. So you go ahead. Go ahead and say your names and stuff like that.
Thank you. First, I should say it feels kind of an honor to be able to talk to you, Madam President. Is it Madam? Madam
Penny.
President.
President
Okay.
Davidson. That's fine.
President Davidson.
Yeah.
I really like what you said in the beginning about history and political science should make us feel worried even before Trump said what he said and did what he did.
Mhm.
I wanted to ask you a bit more of a broad question. I think a lot of the quote unquote good sides throughout history and political history in US, a lot of the progressive groups and human rights groups in the past have done terrible, terrible things for poor people, Black people, etc. A lot of human rights groups, the human rights groups equivalent in the colonial times supported slavery. A lot of human rights groups today still support terrible places like that.
Yeah.
A lot of progressive Democrats who fight for us have done terrible, terrible things for Black communities and poor white communities and etc.
Yeah.
And a lot of the limited progress or the limited support that progressive groups provide, that limitation or that limited help ends up being a risk, or it ends up leaving them vulnerable for really lazy efforts. Because we should admit that Trump's efforts are pretty lazy. The way he talks, 5th grade level of vocabulary. I mean, he doesn't know the law when he says it, but it's working so efficiently.
It's true.
And I wanted to ask you, from a broad, maybe more historical or systemic outlook at the way schools like MSU are structured, schools that are designed to help the most vulnerable, what ways have MSU and other progressive schools like that left us vulnerable?
Left you vulnerable?
Yes.
Okay, so very interesting take on history. My take on history is that there is like parallel good and bad happening all the time, right? Like the progressive era was a big leap forward. As Martin Luther King would say, the arc bends towards justice, even though it's, and then there's all these other terrible things that also are happening, right? All the time. So nothing is one way or another. That's what I would amend your description, right? I'll tell you what happened in this university was started in 1965. And history is really helpful in times like this because there's good and bad examples. People say, oh, we've been through worse. I'm like, yeah, we've been through worse. And it was either institutions or war that got us out of it. So we could be bad, right? This university was started in 1965 for two main reasons. One, the baby boomers, was this huge demographic bulge of people that were coming into the college age, and there weren't literally enough colleges and universities. Number one. Number two, there was the sense that only up until, the progressive era, that only elite white sons really got to go to college, and occasionally some women. And they would go and they would study something esoteric because they were just going to go take over daddy's business anyway, right? And this was a big change. that no, this isn't how we want everybody to have access. So there was the GI Bill that also not everybody got, but should have got. A lot of other people got, working class people got, a lot of the Black and women veterans didn't get it. So not always perfect and also flawed, but it was a big change in mentality. And so this school was supposed to be that place. And it was also like there wasn't really an undergraduate school in downtown Denver. And downtown Denver was where a lot of folks that were not going to get to go off to college, you know, with mom and dad paying. And so I'll tell you what happened. People were super excited. And there was a huge pushback because the elite who were sending their boys to the expensive schools got deferments for Vietnam. And what they said out loud, we can't have a school like that for those people because then the government will change the rules and they'll make my son go to Vietnam. They said that kind of thing out loud back then. So, you know, we don't think that way anymore. People fought for this school. Students, there was students in the first or second class to attend MSU Denver, like in, well, maybe the fourth or fifth class down in like the early 70s, took an entire semester off to lobby the state government because CU was trying to shut down MSU Denver. Like, this is what happened here, you guys. Like, this is why people are so passionate about this university, because it's held the line over and over. So your question was, what bad things have we done? Really, this place has been holding the line for 60 years. So when I think about it in that respect, I'm kind of like, we're going to keep holding the line. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I feel like you guys helping people understand, because we're about to hit the 60th anniversary, thinking about that legacy and honoring a lot of those folks that busted their butt to save this school so that you could have this today. Like, they're going to be on campus next year. And it's going to be kind of a, you know, a moment.
I have Victor, then Sky, then Amelia, then Siobhan. Siobhan's after Victor. After Victor? Okay.
So in Facebook publications, people that are following these immigration raids, there has definitely been people in the wrong place at the wrong time, especially with like apartment complexes and such, that most of these people that they are deporting aren't criminals. These are people that are my neighbors, our neighbors. MSU students go to these places, these apartment complexes. Let's say one of them, God forbid, happens to be in one of these raids. Is there, maybe you would know, is there a system set in place where if the student can't attend classes anymore, can't attend, is there some way to get their financial aid back, scholarships back? Are we as an institution supporting those students that are in that situation in a raid? And are we allocating them immigration lawyers? Because we want to serve our students.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Especially since we are a Hispanic serving institution.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. So I'll say two things. One is we did get donor funds to provide legal assistance. So like if that were to happen, who finds out first? Maybe you guys, maybe the students find out first, and making sure you're calling into Taylor's team or Steve, but also Gregor on the legal front. Then there's what's happening here in the classroom and everything else. And it's funny because I just was emailing with a professor about this today, like asking the same question. And, you know, we don't have like 100 different if-then policies for all the various scenarios that can happen. Right. But we will reiterate to the faculty about our values, which is about meeting students where they are and zigzaggy lives and trying to make sure that you're providing flexibility. I mean, a student like that, you know, if they don't get right back out and right back on track, we're going to have to make sure that we're helping them figure out their path. I mean, if they never come back, should we refund their money? Yeah. But our goal is to help them and get them back, especially if they're not criminals, whatever that means. Taylor, do you want to say something to that?
Yeah, I was just going to add the resource is the Student Care Center. So if you hear of folks, you can put in a care report or give them a call, and we help coordinate all of that on the back end. For the
Great. See? But I really appreciate that you're bringing that up, because what I love to hear is that the students have the tentacles out and they would know or hear about if this is happening. The other thing that we talked about earlier was students that are just anxious and nervous and scared and worried and trying to drop out and just staying home by themselves. I feel like that's a pretty unhealthy thing to do. And they, to get them to stay in school and stay in their community on campus, community really helps when you're nervous and stressed. And you guys are that community, and you guys are the leaders. And so I'm really happy to hear that you're really thinking about how to stay in touch and make sure you're providing all the supports you can for students like that.
Oh my God, Siobhan.
All right, Siobhan.
Hi, President Davidson. I'm Siobhan. So I know you had touched on students would be safe when they're in the classes, but how about someone I happen to be at the bus stop or at the train station somewhere around, and the students are on their way to class? Like how do y'all fight for that student, or will y'all fight? How do you protect that sad student?
I think it's very parallel to the question he just asked. We were also talking during COVID, when faculty and staff and students would come to me and they were so stressed out about so many things, many of which like I can't do anything about, but I can provide, resources for mental health and legal assistance. We cannot fan out across this entire front range and make sure that everybody is not vulnerable to a scenario like that. But if they do get caught up in a scenario like that, you just heard the way we can respond. So unless you have another idea, what would you do if you were me for that kind of scenario?
I think there should be you should find a way to like how they have the phones around at the train stations. Have where they can call Tucker or Taylor or
Yeah,
or someone
So
from the
communicate-
campus, directly from the campus.
Sure. Yeah, well,
Like
they
a
can
crisis,
do that. And
yeah.
so the key is making sure people know. And that's where you guys can really help. Yes, another way to help is communication, making sure that students know where those resources are, that they know that there's a website that has all that stuff on there, that if they're worried about that they've got the right phone numbers in their cell phone ready to go. Like that would help. So thanks for that question.
Sky next, then Amelia.
There's a lot that's been said on this specific issue. So 3 days ago, the apartment complex I lived at last year was raided by ICE. And
The what?
The apartment complex I lived at last year was
3 days ago?
3 days ago, it was raided by ICE. It's in Denver. It's not in Aurora.
Mhm. Yeah.
And friends that I know are in ICE custody right now. Had they been MSU students, we got to hear what the care team, we got to hear about that. The scenario was proposed that if on Auraria campus outside of buildings, what would happen if someone's taken there? I would want a rapid response team on campus ready to go at a call or an email or a moment's notice that any student knows they can send that to, more like a local version of the rapid response network across Colorado. And I would want that system to not be run by carceral, not be run by ACPD. I want that system to be run by a care team of people that either work for MSU Denver or for Auraria campus. Also, I know that MSU Denver, well, I'm not a legal scholar, so I don't know much, but I know that MSU Denver is leasing places on Auraria campus, and that Auraria campus owns the actual land. And so Auraria campus should be able to tell ICE whether or not they're allowed on the property here. And so that would be another possible solution, whether or not they'll follow it, to not allowing ICE on the actual land, the 150 acres that we sit on. And then to your point about the policy is that they only deport criminals at this very moment, and that's what they're supposed to do. It's criminals. With the Lake and Riley Act passing and now being law after Trump signed it, being accused of a crime is grounds for deportation if you have any sort of status that's not U.S. citizen or permanent legal resident with a green card, meaning that that would include DACA students as well. That I can see this in the next 4 years most definitely impacting MSU students and students on this campus. What will you, as the chief of MSU, do working with the regular campus to try to make sure that it is very clear what to do? I don't want an if this, if that with every single possible outcome. I want a general, this is what we are trying to do following our cadre values. This is what we want. Will the regular campus make that a thing? And then will they work with MSU as MSU can do what they control?
So you answered your own question. What would we do? What do you want us to do? And you're 80% there. Absolutely. They share our values. They feel the same way about ICE. I say you're 80% there because you got 20% of the legal piece a little bit, unfortunately, wrong. As a public university, we can't shut off. We can't shut off the grounds. Just can't, and couldn't physically do it anyway. And so, you know, like a scenario where ICE is like trolling through like vampires around the campus trying to pluck people off, like that would be weird. I mean, they're going to go to places where people are clustered, like these apartment complexes and things like that. But, you know, we don't, so it's a public university and the land is owned by the state. We don't lease land. We don't lease, well, technically, I guess we technically lease this building for $1. You know, I mean, it's a complicated thing, but we have a shared campus and we have one police force, and that is the ACPD. Say what you will, but they are very, very, very supportive and loving of our students. They are on this campus because they care about that. I know people don't necessarily believe that because they don't like any police, but if any police in this environment is on your side, it's those guys. It's not ICE, it's these guys. But you're not going to get a clash, I don't think, like a violent cop on cop clash between ICE and our guys. Like, it's going to be a legal thing, right? If you've ever been to Dublin, Ireland, anybody ever been to Dublin, Ireland? There's a famous university in the middle of the city. You've been there? It's called Trinity College. And we went there last year, and I look at the map and I'm charting it out with my husband and my son. We're gonna like walk through the city, and I said, well, we're gonna walk through campus because it's supposed to be a really beautiful campus. So we'll get to the other side. We go up to walk through campus, can't walk through the campus. It's completely gated off. There are 2 entrances, and they're only open for certain times. Why? So that's an urban university. That's how they do it there. Why? 500 years of revolutions, violent revolutions, where they had to lock themselves down. So we don't do that in America. Our urban universities are not locked down. They're mostly, you don't know where the city stops and the university begins, and it's by design. So we could do that. We could gate off the entire, I mean, we already kind of have it with Auraria and Spear and Colfax are kind of like moats anyway. Like you could put a giant fence up, but we don't have that. So that's kind of where I'm at. So all the things that you've said already, we've already do. And then Taylor, do you want to address the, you know, if somebody's got caught up on our campus, it would be similar as if they got caught up at the bus station, right? Who would they call? What would they do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So Siobhan, just to respond to your question earlier too, we have little QR codes that have that information so you can make quick contact. So I'll make sure that folks or anybody that wants them to pass them out, we can get that to you.
We should need to flood the space with that kind of info.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, as far as what the care team would do, I mean, they would try to quickly gather as much information as they could just to understand what resources would be most relevant to the student. So that could getting them connected to these external legal resources. We would help interface with the faculty members to either figure out if they need to take a break for the semester, if they can get linked back in a week, depending on the circumstances. If they need to take a break from school, we can help them get withdrawn in a way that won't impact their financial aid over the long term as well too.
Yeah.
And then potentially explore options for refunds as well too. So I think there's quite a number of things that we can do.
Yeah.
My team also is like the mental health support system as well too. So either through the social work system that we have with the case managers in the care center or getting them connected for longer term care up in the
So we
counseling
have
center.
all these things. How do we make sure the students know about them?
We'd love to come in if you have organizations, you
What do
want
you
to talk
guys
about
think?
that. Getting involved at our involvement fairs early in the year. If you all have other ways that you think we can
The
sort of
runner.
share more of this information, the runner, yeah, absolutely.
We put
So,
information up in the bathroom stall.
yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
just like all those things. Like, where do you meet students where they are? Give talking points to faculty, maybe, or the QR things to faculty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have Amelia next, and then we can go back to Sky.
Amelia.
Hello, Dr. Davidson. Thank you for being here. My question is stepping a little bit away from the immigration piece of things, but it is still very relevant. I talked last week at the Board of Trustees meeting about the unfortunate situation that's happening with the Gender Institute of Teaching and Advocacy, of that space being, well, one, they've known for 7 years that they've needed to move. MSU Denver's known for 7 years that Gita cannot be in Boulder Creek because that is a CCD building. And now the reality of the situation is that they, have had to kind of find a space given the complexity of a tri-institutional campus. Space is sparse. And so now they're kind of scrambling from my perspective. And they are being put into the central building. But the space is not comparable. This space respectfully looks like a closet. And it's kind of it's kind of confusing to me that we, as I said, we are federally recognized for promoting equity, our values, our morals, the things that we stand for. But I'm like, then why is this the treatment of our Gender Institute of Teaching and Advocacy? That feels really mismatched. And I know, funding is hard, funding is tight. Our university, we don't have a lot of money. I know those things. Those things are all true. But at the same time, I'm like, where's the fight for the space that Gita deserves? I've also heard of other spaces on campus, like I believe Veterans Affairs is also having some rearranging going on. And I understand that things need to change. Budgets are small. But at the same time, I'm like, you can, as university officials, you can still try to fight. And I was quoted from the dean of the college that there's about a $200,000 budget deficit in order to get Gita the space that they need. And in university dollars, that's not, to me, that's a lot of money. But in university scheme of dollars, that's not a lot of money. And I think especially when you think about student retention under this new administration, or when you just talk about student retention generally, that is a space, in addition to offices like Veterans Affairs, those are offices that are hubs for students. Yeah. Those are offices that, have scholarship, FAFSA, CASFA trainings. And if they don't have a space that is comparable, they will not be able to serve their students in the way that they currently are. And so I guess, one, I wanted to bring that to your attention. And two, I wanted to ask what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, thanks, Beth. So let me say this. There's nothing more political in any office building or any campus than.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we have short, medium, and long-term things. I know about this situation. I went back and looked into it, but let me tell you the long term, right? So if in the long term, we're building student housing that's going to have a classroom to career hub with lots of space. We're building a health institute that's going to have lots of space. We're going to backfill a lot of these other places. And so we are really budgeting for that in the long term. Yeah, we've known for 7 years. Gita got bounced because CCD sprung it on us. It's a long story, but they did have a plan, and Gita rejected that plan. They were going to put them in one of the newest buildings, but they didn't like that space. And so the point is this, to me, this is, another, in between space. So what they've come up with, I don't know, this is what the faculty are doing, so it might not have gotten down to the student level. The faculty, on the academic side, it's the responsibility of the deans and the provosts and all that leadership to make sure that, space allocations are fair, but also fiscally responsible, to your point about money. And so if you're going to have a long-term goal to improve these spaces, you want to spend enough money in the short term, but not all the money, right? So Gita rejected that one space. And so the dean actually said, okay, well, I'll take that space and you can have my space. And so that's what they're haggling on right now.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, there is money set aside, and I forget the number. Let me see. Let me get actual. And right now, far from what you actually said.
That was what the dean quoted me, and he said estimate. He kept repeating estimate, estimate, estimate. So
yeah. Hang on a second.
It's for estimations.
Well, they're still working it out. The point is that they actually know that it's an issue.
Yeah.
Long term.
And I appreciate you bringing up the fact that they were given a space in AES, and
they didn't like it apparently. I haven't walked these spaces, but yes. I'm trying to find the numbers here. Yeah, they declined the space in AES, and then they're haggling. They had a budget. Where is it? Gita's being funded by the provost's office because the provost is actually adding to the funding. Gita has been allocated the largest portion of that's it. Gita has been apportioned the largest portion of the budget. So you've got a bunch of other departments that are fighting for this money. So they're going to do as much as they can do to make it right. Are you keeping track of this Gita issue at all?
Connected to that one. Sorry.
Yeah. Long term on the veterans piece, the long term piece on that is, they're in the Tivoli now, right? There's a whole Tivoli Reimagined project. but within the next 2.5 years, the infrastructure on this campus is going to be so different.
Yeah.
You guys will be graduated by then and in law school or something, probably. But yeah, so
yeah, I appreciate that. I know all of the. We had a meeting with the dean.
You got to take the big perspective here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand that, and the reason that I asked is because I just came from a meeting where there's a whole team of people working on student retention. I'm like, okay, well, how are you going to do that? I've looked at the numbers. I see that we're worried about students declining. I'm like, okay, well, how are you supporting the retention of your students? And then I see a support system like this who keeps students on this campus. I'm like, why are we treating it like that?
Yeah.
And so it feels a little bit odd. And I understand that the dean did express to us that there was a massive commitment from the provost's office. And I'm like, great. We're not saying that we're ungrateful for that. It's just, there's still a gap. So I appreciate that you both know about this. And I think my last comment is, I think
it's on a list of all the other people who are pissed off about their spaces.
Right. It's a whole list. And the last point that I'll say is, I guess it's just a little confusing to me that student affairs has nothing that you mentioned.
It's an academic program.
I know, but as students go there, it is a student space. To me as a student, it's not just an academic space, but it is also a hub for students.
Yeah, and that's what makes our faculty so special at MSU Denver, is that the blurred line between student affairs and faculty affairs, the overlap is the caring for students, right? So,
yeah,
I don't know what else to tell you.
That's okay.
I've looked into the issue. At my level, my guiding principle is don't waste money by renovating spaces that you're just going to leave again. But you got to look at the short term anyway. I remember when they built, you guys were not even alive yet, but when they built the new airport,
Yeah.
we still had another airport. So they're out there building this airport. It was like in the late 80s and early 90s. And they spent a bunch of money to renovate the existing airport. And people were like, why are you doing that? They're like, because we still have to use it. So you had to do it, right? You still had to do it. And so that's kind of the situation that we were in when we moved Gita over to Boulder Creek, because we spent a bunch of money on that. And now we're spending, I mean, if you were like, I don't know, the psychology department, you'd be like, looking at all the money they've spent on Gita, right? So,
Yeah.
but if you're Gita, you're like, you're getting bounced around. But they have been actively part of that process. Yeah. It's not easy. It's just, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it's not easy on this floor. I got like, you know, this director wants that office and that director wants this office. And I'm like, I'm not getting into this food fight. I got other more important things to do, but y'all work out your office space. It's political. But in this case, it's also money. And we need to make sure we're doing it right. And we're balancing what you just said, which is the needs of the students across the whole university.
Thank you.
Sky, is yours on the same topic? Because I think Mike has a follow-up on this.
Mine is on the same topic,
Okay,
but
perfect.
I've talked a
Go for
lot, so let Mike go
Okay,
first.
we'll go ahead and let Mike go first,
Yeah.
and then we'll come back.
Mike. Can't see
Hello,
you.
President Davidson. Yes, sorry. My hello car trouble, so I'm remote today. So,
No worries.
but I want to kind of maybe help you out here a little bit in terms of the spacing issue, because
Okay.
I've been in a lot of meetings. We're having like you mentioned a little before, we're having much more buildings being on campus that are MSU. I don't want to say owned, but like there are buildings. They're going to be our buildings in the future. And I mean, Dr. Davidson knows this. Anyone who knows me knows this. I've hit this battle drum for many years talking about spacing on this campus. It's like the first big issues that like I advocated on. And I think when these buildings come, when like long term, when these buildings do get built and when we're able to kind of utilize these buildings, I think that's the kind of the chance the students have to kind of strike there and be like, hey, what do we want in these buildings? Because now they're just schematics. But and there's plenty of time then to kind of advocate what we want in these buildings, like student housing building and like to the Health Institute Tower. So I think this is our chance to kind of take back some of the space that we need. So that's what I would say to that.
Oh, yeah, and we're also renovating the pool. Did you guys hear about that?
Yep.
I'm very excited.
I did tell him about the pool, Dr. Davidson.
I'm very excited about that. Everybody knows it's my pet issue. I hear you. That's what I'm going to say about space. And it generates PTSD response to me as a leader because it's really hard. Go ahead.
So I see how space is the big issue, and I've noticed that. So like you said, there's lots of political things. It's like who's getting the space, each department's fighting. There's the money issue. You have to be fiscally responsible with how you're spending your funds, especially if you plan to move Gita again. My thing is that Gita is an academic department, but each academic department has like a little room in there for like student space. I'm not going to say every, but most of them that I've seen, because I've walked around and seen almost every department so far. And a lot of the people from that department, some students that are really passionate about that really like click with the professors, they'll hang out in there and they'll have a little community space. Gita does that, but Gita's different in that it's not just GWS majors in there hanging out. It's not just people that are having Gita classes. It's every queer student on this campus knows Gita is a place they can go.
That's cool.
Non-MSU students know Gita is a place they can go. Gita accomplishes what the LGBTQ Resource Center and the Tivoli wishes they would. Not to say that they're not doing things, because they are, and they are a space. I've talked to their director and talked to some of those people, but Gita accomplishes that really well. It's also a satellite for Rowdy's Corner.
Why, help me understand, why is Gita doing it better than the other place?
Well, at the current space Gita has is a much better space for one. I think that the faculty and staff of Gita are amazing, and they are better advisors. They're better. There's just everything in Gita is amazing compared to the other resources for queer students. Queer students and queer people in general need queer spaces to go to, because and I feel like this is part of our cadre values. It's having this space. So I understand why the provost deems it necessary to give Gita more money than the other departments, but I think it goes further than that, and that even in this interim, when you're trying to find another space for Gita, you need to keep that community space alive. And the dean suite that it's getting pushed into is closets, and it is backroom closets, it is administrative offices, and like that's needed for an academic department to have those. But Gita has that, and then also has the community space. And I totally understand. Also, you're trying to find the space and what's going on. And I want to really, really, really ask that be considered
So-
in
So
the
what I'm
possibilities
thinking
that
is
you have.
interesting for me, and I'm sure it's interesting for you, Taylor, too. Like, it isn't just about Gita as an academic department. This is about student life of the queer LGBTQ community, right? So maybe, we step back and figure out what problem we're trying to solve. And it may not just be about Gita, it may be a bigger thing that actually, if you try to solve it together, could actually have more resources and a bigger synergistic approach, maybe.
Gita is a safer space for every marginalized community on this campus,
Yeah.
not just queer people as well.
But I'm looking at you, Taylor, because wouldn't you hope or presume that your LGBTQ space would be perceived that way?
Absolutely.
So if you're hearing that it's not meeting the mark, maybe there's something you can learn from or collaborate with the Gita. Yeah, interesting. Yeah,
Hi, can I-
please. Yeah.
So as the person who oversees the LGBTQ Student Resource Center, I think there are a lot of limitations in the space itself, but also in the staffing. We have two full-time employees that are overseeing a center to support all 3 campuses that have to work within
Because it's
3
tri-institutional
systems
as
because
well.
it's tri-institutional, and there are a lot of challenges with that in a very limited space in the Tivoli Student Union. And there have been years of advocacy to expand that space and to advocate for additional funding that is equitable between all 3 institutions is what we're looking at right now and revising our memorandums of understanding to work on that. So I just want you to know it is a priority of ours and has been something that we've been working on for years. But because of the limitations of the Tivoli Student Union and how expensive it is to expand that space, it's been something that we've been saving for, but wanting others to.
So let me
contribute
ask
to.
you something. Is part of what makes Gita more welcoming to the MSU Denver students that it's MSU only?
No.
Okay.
So I can tell you
So
that
tri-institutional wouldn't be a problem.
I don't think tri-institution would be a problem for community space.
Uh-huh.
I can tell you I know like 4 straight people and that's it. So everyone that I know on this campus pretty much is some sort of queer or gay. And it's multiple different campuses. And a lot of them like to go to Gita. Gita is a place where there's food, there's couches. It's not just chairs and tables. It's not like a place to do your homework, even though it is that. It's a place to have community. I go there when I'm doing things that are unrelated to school, just to sit there on my computer and do stuff. It's a
And
place to
Boulder Creek
share
right now,
resources
right?
with each other. It's a place
Still
to
in
share
Boulder
things.
Creek right now, right?
Yes, they
Like
have
right this minute, it's still in Boulder
Yes.
Creek.
Yeah.
So
I also want to clarify that I'm not dissing the LGBTQ Resource Center. Miss Tyrell is an amazing human, and I love the people that work there.
I think you hurt her feelings over
Yeah,
here. She's
no.
working so hard.
I'm just,
Yeah, I'm like-
I say that Gita does do it better, but I'm not dissing their work, and the people that get to go there enjoy it.
Are you saying also that in the Gita spaces you have people from CCD? And
See your hand
Denver?
there.
Yeah.
When I was a CCD student, I went to Gita.
Oh yeah.
So like I know, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
the last point I was just going to add is Gita is more. That's why I was confused about the student affairs part. I'm like, but Gita is more than going to meeting with
Something.
advising about my thesis. Gita is where there's community events. We talk about building community on this campus to support student retention. We talk about, oh my gosh, why is there no student turnout at our events? Every single Gita event that I've been to, that room is packed.
Yeah.
That room is packed. And so I think there's something to learn from Gita and the way that they are cultivating community on this campus. And not to say that they, not to say that folks are doing anything inherently wrong if you're not Gita, but I think the space that they have now affords them to do the things that maybe other folks
There are
don't
lots
have
of pockets
capacity to
like
do.
that across the university for different communities. Folks in the hospitality feel that way in different ways for different reasons. The social work department, there's a lot of bright lights like that. So it is a good point to think about, like, what is it that makes it like that?
It's the space.
Yeah.
It's the
Well,
physical
it's more than the
space.
space, isn't it?
But the space is almost like the foundation of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. What do you think,
Taylor.
Jose?
I'll just offer a thought too. Amelia, I know you left a little early last week, but it would be absolutely be the intention of the student engagement strategy to pull those exact things together for more collaborative things and more collective support.
So what do you mean by that, I guess?
That was the presentation that I gave last week. I
Yeah.
can connect with you individually. So it would be the crosswalk exercise. So
Yeah.
answering big, broad questions about how we support
Yeah.
student groups on this campus and then aligning those resources.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
I think it goes back to, sorry, I'm speaking out of order. I'm so sorry.
No, you're totally fine. I do have two people ahead of you. I also want to acknowledge the fact that we only have 25 minutes left in this meeting, and we do have
Yeah.
two other items on our agenda as well as all of our
I was only
updates.
supposed to be here till 12, but I'm digging it. So
Yeah, I do
kick me
think this
out
has
when
been a
you're
really
ready.
robust and like fruitful conversation. So if there's some of this that can wait, I know like our budget committee pending cannot wait, and our OER resolution I don't think can wait. And we also have individuals on.
So
I
let's
think
like
for
to
that.
the other two people that are waiting to
Yeah.
say something, and then one can wrap up and get the
Okay,
heck out of
perfect.
here.
So
and
I'm
you
just
guys
gonna
can get
let
your
the
work done.
yeah these last two.
Thank
So
you.
I apologize. You were here for public comment, but I did not catch your name because I wasn't in the room. But
Yeah, I appreciate the extra time. My name is Mikhail. It's spelled like Michael. You can call me Michael. I wanted to comment on to draw back from my previous question of some of the systems in place designed to help us sometimes can get end up providing systemic vulnerabilities. I wanted to comment on the care center, which does amazing work. I think the concept of a care center in of itself is a great idea of trying to make a decentralized place for any issue, and that they can pivot you to wherever you need to be. I do think that I can't imagine how. I mean, the care center. I can imagine. I can only imagine how overworked they are already, just because of how many students need help. I know for me, I put in a referral for myself, and it took a few days for me to reach back, and they did, and they were so grateful to say they were so great in finding time to meet next week. And it just takes a lot of time, just because there's I don't even know tens of thousands of students. um, um, I, and also talking about how with the Gita space and then with the LGBTQ center, and it's interesting how spaces that may have more funding already may not be as efficient as other spaces, and it just kind of gets, even though both spaces, the workers there are pulling heaven and earth to provide support for these students, and I think it just kind of shows how there are some vulnerabilities in these systems that can't just be explained just from the funding or the spaces or the building. But I just wanted to comment on that. But then I also wanted to ask, I'm really grateful to see how much support you're showing, Madam President, for everything that Trump has been saying and all of the other issues before that. Um, the Denver mayor made a lot of inspiring comments, and then and he's limited in what he can do, and from my understanding, he had to step back and allow ICE to do what they have to do what they're required to do by law. I have a friend who works she's a teacher in DC, and the DC mayor also had to bow down to Trump after initially he said what they were saying. And I understand how as mayors, yes, they have a lot of power, but they're limited also, and there's only so much, you know, so much they can argue against the executive of the country. I wanted to ask, you did imply before, for example, how you will absolutely try your best to push back against ICE, but you're not going to send ACPD to fight them, of course. And if they do come in with the warrants, you implied that you have to follow that. I wanted to ask how can you assure us that MSU Denver won't also bow down, even though they're promising that they won't, the same way the Denver mayor did, same way the same way DC's mayor did, the same way some Democratic senators have done already.
Wait, interesting that you say that Mike Johnson bowed down. He's still not helping. He's just letting, if they have warrants for actual people that have committed crimes, but he's not putting out, what did he say? He was going to have people out there like Tiananmen Square or something like that, right? Yeah. So Well, that's what we're going to do. That's all I can tell you. I mean, we're not going to invite them in. We're not going to let them in without a warrant. We're not going to let them run all over campus without us. We're not going to, we're just not going to do that. That doesn't mean I can like physically stop some big ICE dude from doing something. But there are other things you can do in a democracy, right? So I can't imagine all the different scenarios, but I know what the law is, and that's what we're going to do.
May I ask? I've read about instances and stories where ICE agents would come in and guns blazing, metaphorically, just a lot, ready, and a lot of them, and they would have their own, they would bring their own warrants, but then those warrants
turn out to be bogus.
Yeah, in some way, it's like different than an actual like arrest warrant that a judge signed, and then I was just curious where, let's say, a student puts in a referral like that, where ICE came on like the public area of the campus, like the bus stop, and they said they had a warrant, but then they inspected and the warrant is, this is not an arrest warrant though. And let's say there is someone here, like just by luck, some carrier representative or maybe ACPD, and the ICE are insisting they have a warrant, but it's not signed. In that specific moment, from my understanding, MSU Denver will have to comply with the ICE agent.
If it's not a legit warrant, they're not going to comply, right? What would you have us do? What is it? How would you answer that question if you were me?
Yeah, well,
what do you want to hear?
I guess not being afraid to yell at them for the student in some literal or metaphorical way. I've seen videos where lawyers were there helping the illegal immigrant, and the lawyer had to push and push and push against the ICE, like verbally, because that's not signed by a judge, you can't, and it was really tense and scary, and it was long and drawn out, and these ICE agents are massive and swole and everything, and eventually the ICE agents complied and left.
That's right.
But it was really like,
that's right,
shaky. Even the lawyer was.
How did you see that? Somebody's taping it, right?
Yeah, that's another thing.
That's right, and you should do. Yeah.
I do see I have Sky and Pat with direct comments.
Who hasn't spoken yet?
Who hasn't spoken?
Pat hasn't spoken yet.
Yeah.
You want to make it brief?
Yeah, super brief. I think what Mikhail's trying to say, and what us also, I mean, it's just what we're looking for, at least for me, it's just not, it's not like I don't want you to fight against the government, right? We have to follow the laws, but we do want to know and certified that we will have our faculty and our administration, our university will fight with us against injustice.
Yeah. For sure.
Matt has been waiting to speak, so.
Go ahead,
if you
Matt.
have something to say.
You're doing a great job.
Matt, are you still on there?
Is your mic on?
Yeah. Hey, Matt.
I don't have a comment at this point now.
All right. You agree with everything I said. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Just take me.
I'll keep that quick. Okay, just kidding.
I just have
keep it brief.
really quick on this
Yeah.
point. So, warrants, administrative warrants, judicial warrants. There's search warrants and there is arrest warrants. ICE can issue arrest warrants administratively that you don't have to comply with. It's judicial ones. But what matters is the person the ICE agent talks to has to tell them that. Or another policy for MSU is that staff and faculty get David Fine or someone else from the general counsel's office immediately. The problem is that in the heat of the moment, will that policy be followed? And will the ICE agent wait however long it takes to get a general counsel person there? What if they're off on this and someone else is, it could be an issue. And if I've seen firsthand where a MSU employee directed police on this campus to do something that wasn't legal.
Really?
And was an unenforceable arrest.
Really?
I was the arrestee, but I've seen that happen. And that was later found out in court, but I have the privilege of being a white human and not having immigration questions. And with Lake and Rowley Act, if that happens, doesn't matter what level that person is. If they're an MSU employee and they tell the ICE agent that, the ICE agent can go and do whatever they want to, if in the heat of the moment there's a problem. So I think that trying to very clearly clear up that policy with every single MSU employee and every single person to know exactly what the process is, and maybe some things to say in the meantime while David finds on the way. Say like, you cannot search this, you cannot do this. I cannot allow you to comply. I'm not complying with this until I get this person there. Having some like list of things to say, something like that, very clear on something signed off by David Fine or something would be very helpful on the side of like, is a warrant credible? Because a teacher or a department head or someone's not going to know what to do
We don't
until they
expect
get a
them to know.
counsel
We
there.
expect them to call legal counsel. It's not just David Fine, but though he's the best. He's the head of it all.
Yep.
Yeah. I agree with you. That's what we're doing.
Amazing. Okay, I think that's all the time that we have for this. Thank you so
Thanks,
much, President
everybody.
Davidson, for being here and talking
Thank you.
with us.
Thank you so much, President Davidson.
What was that? We have 25 minutes, right? Because you guys voted to extend to 1:15 from now on. Okay. Okay, perfect. So then I think we have enough time for now. If we need to add time at the end, I will. Levi,
If we can do Brian's time.
all right. Since that went a little bit longer than planned, we do have a couple of people that are here for the OER resolution. I'm gonna go ahead and make a resolution to reorder our new business and go with the OER resolution next, and then go with the budget committee pending student funding next. Any objections? The motion's been made. Any objections? Any abstentions? Perfect. We're gonna go ahead and do that reorder then. We're gonna start with the OER resolution. Amelia?
I apologize. When I sent my message that I did have to leave 10 minutes early, I didn't use the assumption that our meeting was until 1:15, the new implementation. So I do unfortunately have to leave right now.
No worries at all. Thank you for letting us know.
You're good. Apologize for that.
No
Thank
worries.
you.
Right. I'll let you take it.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Brandon, real quick, could you bring up the OER resolution? OER, which as you all know is Open Educational Resources. I'm here with my colleagues, Emily and Brian from the OER Task Force. I'm bringing up a resolution for them to partner with us for an event on the first week of March. Basically, what we're looking to do is that we're looking to work together with TSAC to not just this event, but events in the future to kind of partner together to work with each other to table for events, both on their end for OER and both on the TSAC end as well, so that we both can mutually help each other with getting out there, open educational resources. Like earlier I mentioned in I believe either last meeting, is that recently OER received a bunch of grants. And so I wanted to kind of turn over to Emily and Brian to kind of talk more about what OER is.
Hi. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear and see you. Okay.
Fantastic. And I had the privilege of talking with folks in TSAC at the beginning of the fall semester and sharing a little bit about what we've been doing. But OER are open educational resources. They're free for students to use. They're free for faculty to adapt and modify and make customized versions of. And starting in about 2018, there was grant funding from the state that our institution has applied for and received to provide faculty stipends for trainings and OER adoption grants. And we're really excited to try to raise more awareness about OER with students. One thing that's a little tricky is it gets down to licensing, how is material licensed? But we're really excited during Open Education Week, which is the first week in March, to try having some tables in the Tivoli, and to have we have a bunch of stickers that we're looking forward to handing out, and we're thinking about getting pizza. And so we would love to start raising awareness about open educational resources among the students on the Auraria campus.
Ryan, did you have anything to add to that? That's all good? Okay. So with all that, if you don't have any questions about that, we'll move on to reading the resolution. So if you can please, Brandon. So yeah, abstract. The OER task force is asking to partner with TSAC to get help setting up an event for them. OER wants to have an event during the first week of March from the 4th, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. This coincides with the Open Education Week. Open Education Week is a global event that raises awareness, shows initiative, and celebrates open education ventures. The OER task force wants to use this week as an opportunity to showcase information about open education resources. Whereas the OER task force has made strides in getting grants and funding for students to receive free educational resources. OER recently received a large amount of funding to help facilitate open education resources. OER wants to table for a one-day event to assist students with their financing and options for free educational resources. I'm saying that a lot. OER's tabling event coincides with the Open Educational Week. OER tends to have the tabling event March 4th. The tabling event will be in the piano room. I don't know if you were aware, and frankly, we don't really know the official room name for it, but it was it. Is it the tavern? Okay. So it's Tavern Lounge on the 3rd level. Okay, if it is the piano room, Tavern Lounge, we'll fix it. But yeah, the tabling event will be in the piano room or the room under the 355 Tavern Lounge from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. The people that will be tabling at the event will be myself, who will collaborate with the MSU or OER staff task force. The tabling event will promote knowledge and interest in OER resources among students. Whereas the OER task force is requesting TSAC to sponsor their event to help with reserving the space, financing the food, and materials to help promote, such as posters, flyers, and other materials. Therefore, be resolved, the Student Advocacy Council will sponsor the OER event to help promote awareness of free educational resources for students. Haley.
How much funding are you wanting for this, and where are you pulling the funding from?
So initially, right now for the resolution, I want to present to the council just to look at, but also to kind of discuss as well what they were feeling about it, because I knew there's a couple of parts on this resolution that maybe TSAC wants more participation or maybe more information about. So for where we're sourcing the funding from, it would be from the PR committee, and it would be an estimate that we had range from either $200 to $400. Does anybody else have any questions about it?
What support do you need from us outside of just your involvement on this?
So that's really up to so on their end, because they put in the hard work and getting these grants and working with all the stuff. They just need help on our end to kind of work with the logistics. They just need help from me to be TSAC representative. But if it would be amenable to Emily and Brian and also maybe the other TSAC personnel, we could have more TSAC representation, such as another counselor, if it's okay with everybody. But it's really up to how much you guys want to be involved, really.
Patrick, then Vic.
Yeah, that was my question too. It's like how else can we get involved other than finances and having if we could have maybe more than one TSAC leader, or what are the updates that we've been missing on?
To kind of add to that, this won't be the only joint venture as well, because there is some ideas that we've been throwing around that the task force can also work with TSAC maybe in the future for other events, because it's both tied into fundamental goals that we both have. We both want to help students with their education here on campus, And so having us work together for this event, maybe future events, could really be beneficial and show the students that are what we're trying to like achieve for them. Emily and Brian, do you have any comments on what I said so far?
And you had brought up the possibility of getting an OER club on campus, and so that would be perhaps a good step so that students who are interested in getting more involved with promoting OER, there would be kind of an organized way to do that. So we have some interest in doing that. I'd be willing to be a faculty advisor. So that's something that Levi and I have chatted about, and that would be exciting if we could move forward on that.
Is there any more questions?
I see there's a section that says materials, posters, flyers, stuff like that. We gonna only be passing out that stuff during that week, or are we gonna be provided some of that information before so we could just start passing it up until that week?
So we were discussing it before, but the kind of general, if we are working together in the future, it would be, so they talked to Emily and Brian and task force talked about helping out with some, providing some flyers, poster stuff. It's just that for the level of us wanting to give out our advertisement, it would, go into cost. And so we were thinking that possibly what we can do is that since we're going to partner in the future as well, we can also, like you were saying to your latter point, not only this event, but also events in the future. So yes, it's going to go into events in the future, pretty much.
You mentioned that this is coming out of PR's budget. Is PR aware of this and okay with this?
That was something I did wanted to mention. I know it just says the tabling event. The people that will be tabling at the event will be Levi Chi, and that does it doesn't go under PR committee. So I think that should be changed under PR committee since we are sponsoring the event. We are going to be financing the food, the materials, like the posters, stickers, or how much they will be needing. And we also had to start coordinating a schedule if you want other TSAC member to be involved since you just extended it today.
Okay. Well, in that case, we can make a friendly amendment to change the language in there to add on to it's going to be under the PR committee providing the funds. And then also, if it's amenable to both the task force and us, we can also add another amendment to maybe have more inclusion than just myself.
And also if Eric and Brian? No, Eric and Brian?
Emily and Brian.
Emily and Brian, I'm so sorry about that, Emily. I also wanted to see if this is already a planned out, everything is already planned, knowing the prices of food, materials, and everything, or do you want to start having that planning starting now?
We had discussed ordering pizza from Cosmos Pizza, and just really we would get as much as we could for the amount of money that we got. We do already have from the state of Colorado a bunch of OER related stickers, some postcard sized handouts with a QR code for more information, and some fun temporary tattoos. So, we have some materials that we will have out at this event already, making a custom MSU Denver flyer targeted at students, maybe with some information about the course marking initiative and information about OER at MSU Denver is something that we haven't developed yet, but it would be great to have at this event. I don't know if that answers your questions.
Yeah, that does answer my question a little bit. So you already have most of the materials. Are you just looking for us to rent out the space, the food, and flyers and posters?
Yeah, and we have resources for printing the flyers, but maybe just getting some feedback. Levi has joined the OER task force. So Levi is on the OER task force now. And so certainly I was planning to work with Levi on a customized handout that would be information for MSU Denver students that would be passing out. We do have already those other materials that I've mentioned. But if anyone else wants to be eyes on material, wants to participate at the event, we welcome everyone that wants to come and participate in any way, and even just pick up material and learn. Really, the more the merrier. But yes, specifically, we're asking for support so that we can get some space in the Tivoli for this event. Having it be through a student organization, I think, gives us better access to space. And, if there's money to support having pizza at the event, I think that could help it be more successful.
Kind of add to that. So would you want to make a motion for that amendment to have the language say funding from the PR committee and more involvement than just myself?
And also to make a motion to the materials and posters and flyers, since they already have that material. So we could just say that resolving the space for financing food and space, since that's what I'm clearly hearing.
We're going to go ahead and make a motion to adjust the wording in that whereas comment to explicitly mention the PR budget being the money that this is being funneled from, and to change it to just with reserving the space and financing food, eliminating the last section of that in regards to the materials. Let's do that one first and then we can do the other one. So is there a second to that motion?
Seconded.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Perfect. If we could go ahead and get that wording changed. I don't know, Brandon, if you want to adjust that or if you need me to do it. And then what was the second one? The second change.
The second one is whereas the resolving space and financing food. So just take off.
Okay,
materials.
so it was just those two then, right?
Mhm.
Or is there?
Also, did you want to add an amendment to add more of the TSAC?
Yes. That.
Yeah,
Oh.
not just me. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
That
Okay.
part too.
So then secondarily, we're going to go ahead and make a motion to adjust it from the wording to be the people that will be tabling at this event will be Levi Chi, to just expanding it to the full council is able to help tabling at this event. Can I get a second?
Seconded.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Cool. We'll go ahead and make both of those friendly amendment changes. And with both of those, does anybody have any other questions, comments, concerns regarding this resolution? Will?
Just for future reference to all counselors here, if you are authoring a bill, you do not need to endorse your own bill. It is logically assumed that you are pushing forward that bill.
Any other questions, comments, concerns regarding this resolution? Patrick?
I have one comment. I love this and I'm excited to work with this.
Perfect. I think with the changes, expanding it to the full council and confirming that the PR committee is okay with the budget, I think I'm okay with this. I don't know if anybody else has any concerns regarding this that you want to raise before we make a motion to pass it. No?
So I make a motion to vote on approving the resolution.
Seconded? Any objections? Any abstentions? The resolution passes.
Whoa.
Um,
We'll definitely follow up with you more, Susanna, and the rest of the council about when it goes into more details about the schedules and stuff like that. But yeah, thank you, Emily, and thank you, Brian, for taking time out of your busy days, coming by and talk to the council.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Since we have a little second here and we only have about 7 minutes left, I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to extend our meeting by 15 minutes, taking us up to 1:30.
Seconded.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Perfect. We'll go up until 1:30. If you guys need to leave prior to that because you have other commitments, totally understandable. Just let me know as you leave the room. Moving over to budget committee, Patrick.
Thank you. So the budget committee, we had a meeting, I think it was on Wednesday. On Wednesday, we are pending approval of two organizations, two student orgs that were asking for funds from the TSAC. So beginning with the first one would be for the NACA event, conference event for the student activities, I think, organization. Um, so they're asking for 1,200 and already clearing the fact that we, already establishing that it meets two requirements and it's going to go to their travel, specifically in registration fee. So per the committee, we have already approved, but we're just pending right now for the council to approve as well. If needed, I can show you guys the slides that she provided. Additionally, we also have the Pi Psi, Pi Sigma Espelon, asking for funding of 1,500, including for the registration and travel fees. They're going to use their 1,500, which is their first and only for the school year, just like the NACA for the NACA event. Both of these are requesting for the funds, and from the budget committee perspective, it seems it falls in within the mission statement of MSU and is going to be used properly, funded as our requirements are already stated in the forms that they had to fill out prior to the meeting. Questions or any clarifications need to be made? Right now, it's just really just a matter of us deciding if this also, if you guys agree to the budget committee as if this stands with the mission statement. Thank you, guys.
Does anybody have any questions or concerns for Patrick regarding those two groups and their funding for student travel? Seeing that there are no questions or concerns, I'm going to go ahead and do these as two separate votes. So let's go ahead and make a motion to fund the Student Activities Programming Board.
I second that motion.
Any objections? Any abstentions? The Student Activities Programming Board will be funded. Secondarily, I am going to make a motion to fund PSE and their funding for their conference.
In that motion.
Any objections? Any abstentions? We will go ahead and fund PSE for their travel funding as well. All right, and with that, we are going to move over to announcements, starting with our Board of Trustees, Michael Warner.
I don't have any announcements right now, so.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Then we can move over to SACAB, so Matt and Vic.
Hello. Yes, a couple things from SACAB. The RTD survey was finalized. We made a graphic, so I will be sending that to the PR committee. Send it to your designated groups, clubs, organizations to see. Please, we need the information. We want RTD back on tuition. Please get it out everywhere. Please, pretty please. Second, we're still doing the union, Tivoli Reimagined. We got down to 4 architecture firms, which is really exciting. And then Matt, maybe you wanted to talk a little bit about how the EBT is going.
Yeah, so I met with some representatives with MSU who helped me get the EBT data in the first place, and we explored some options about the EBT on campus. We do have ideas on how to eventually get EBT vending machines on campus, but I think we're going to be shifting our focus in other ways on how to get EBT on campus. For instance, there's a vendor in the Confluence building that we're triple checking, but it sounded like they were trying to get EBT availability. We'll also be exploring avenues like trying to get the bookstore to take EBT, and any other avenue that we can try and fill that gap for students.
And then still working on the bylaws. We just came from a bylaw meeting, trying to make sure everything is set in stone in the SACAB bylaws. We're seeing some interesting leeway towards one institution versus the other two. So that's an interesting thing. We'll have some time later to deliberate and talk to you guys about that and get your guys' opinions. But it is an interesting dilemma that we're dealing with. So stay tuned.
Awesome. Thank you, Victor. And Matt, moving over to Will for Accountability Committee.
Thank you. So we have will finalize the discussions around the Constitution. And next week we will be presenting it to the council to be ratified in time to have the delegates sworn in. That way they can swear in on the new Constitution and, have a good base to follow. But we are excited and very pleased that we have finally gotten there after so many days of working with the council and individually within the committee. So thank you to everyone who participated in that process.
Yeah, and just a quick shout out to Will specifically, but also Matt and Patrick for all your guys' work on that. Budget, Patrick.
Thank you. Okay, can we have that pulled up? Yes, sir. So just quick updates. Really, I was just gathering all the receipts we have for our past events for PR. Finalizing today. As you can see, receipt tracker is up to date as far as for PR. As far as the things I have at hand, I've registered. If you can go to the total amounts or up to on the left. Yeah, it's gone to the tab on the bottom. Yeah. Okay, so that's what we have right now. As you can see, sustainability. I was gonna say for sustainability, I put minus 3,000. That's just from word of mouth right now. As far as I've yet to confirm without receipt, but that is what I'm putting right now, estimated of what you guys have left over. And PR, so PR, that's what we have after our past two events. Right now, we're coordinating for Flower for Friends and our other event. Do we have another event? And the OER event is going to be pending until we finalize those numbers. But those numbers right now represented from our two events that we had. One of them was Food for Finals, which was at the end of the semester, and the Welcome Week that we did. We in total spent about 3,000, I believe 3,518 and 85 cents for both events, which is pretty good for buying for the spaces and the food and the rewards that we're giving out to the students. As it is right now, we just need to make sure we got to make sure we get the receipts in so we can finalize everything else. But right now, our fund remaining for sustainability is as is. It's 4,686 for the student organization fund. Right now, I can update that now since we have approved that. But pending that, it would be up to ranging around $10,300. Whereas PR, we have a remaining of $18,791.45. Budget committee, I've moved 250 so we can provide for the delegate system. Pending, we need to ask accountability if we take an additional 150 for that. So 700. For the office budget, as it is right now, we have 3,096.88 cents. For the leadership development fund, we have 5,000. Accountability committee, 900. The staff is 0, as we already paid that. Elections is 7,000. So we can I know we're having some events setting up for that, so we can get communication and make sure that we get, for the reservations or the food or the snacks that we are providing, we get that informed. And the rainy day fund still remains at 3,172.83 cents. As far other than anything else of that, seems that we're pretty good. I'm glad with the communication between my fellow counselors specifically in terms of our spending and how much we're using. So we can just keep on that clear communication between us and hopefully everyone else as well. Anything else, Vice Chair?
I have nothing. No.
Will has a question for you.
Just a point of clarification for me, please, is so we are moving some of the funds from like the committee, the accountability committee to the student delegate program, correct?
Correct. Per our budget committee meeting that we approved that $100, except I would like to request after looking at furthermore numbers, if we can just do this right now, if I could ask for another 150 to finish off that, as I took out 250 from the budget committee, as we only had 2,000 for the delegates prior, and then into the addition, we need to add an addition of $500.
Right. So just a direct, I guess, question, comment to that. How much more do you need to be able to fund? You said 100?
Yeah, so from you, I would need from the accountability, I would need 150.
Then can we motion just to get that done? Then I motion.
Well, we can do that for the budget committee could vote on it here and now, but we would need to, correct me if I'm wrong, we would need to do a budget reconciliation that would need to be presented and the full council would need to do technically.
Yes.
But if you want to
would
have the
need-
budget committee vote now, since everybody's together.
We would need to have a budget reconciliation to move around the funds for everything. As it is right now, I think we can go for it, at least for this specific
Just have the
one.
budget committee vote.
However, I do plan on doing a budget reconciliation here soon, as there's some question marks in the receipts that is very concerning for me.
Then I motion that we vote on that issue, or right, the moving of the funds. I vote on that, yeah.
Seconded.
Motion, I mean.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Perfect. So then just, can you clarify real quick what the changes before we have the budget committee vote?
Absolutely. So the change is going to be change from the budget committee itself, which is $150 for the budget committee, a total of 250 from accountability, which is an additional 150 from what their preview already established change. And we just need that to make sure that we have 2,500 for our delegate program, which we already set aside 2,000 prior to this meeting.
Perfect. Okay. As for budget committee members that are present, Susanna, are you good to representing PR? Vic, if you want to represent sustainability, Patrick, obviously for budget, Will, obviously for accountability, and then I can represent the co-chairship. So I motion to reallocate those funds.
I second that.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Perfect. And then if we can just make sure that budget reconciliation is done next meeting or the meeting after. Next meeting might be a little bit busy. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, sorry. One last thing, just for an update, we're gonna have a budget meeting on Wednesday. I'm thinking around the same time, as we have 2 more requests for student organization funds. So if you guys can let me know if that time works good again.
What time?
I think last time we did it around 3:15. So it'll be 3:15 and 4:15. We have 2 organizations meeting there, and we can maybe put in there reconciliation in addition.
Yes,
You
but
said 3:15.
not yet.
Awesome.
Okay. PR. And let's keep in mind time as well.
Okay, so me and Patrick, obviously, I'm gonna move PR meeting to 3 p.m. So it's just 30 minutes audio from today. But me and Patrick were talking about an event we want to do. I want to get closer to our goal with the immigration y todo eso. So we want to raffle 2 parking tickets that the money donation goes to the Colorado immigration. So I feel like that's a good way to like parking tickets, obviously, but that money could go and donate. That is like future planning at the moment, but that's an idea I do want everybody to have fresh in their mind. Principal Flowers is next week, so I'll resend out the schedule if we all forgot the schedules. And for future event planning, please make sure you do communicate with PR committee because it is a sponsor event that TSAC does host. So being able to be informative as possible will help us to collaborate with other department or organization better. So please keep that in mind. Thank you.
Would you mind sending out either that schedule again or like calendar invites for those events if possible?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. For Sustainability Committee, I'm sure you already talked about it last week, how we got the school supply donations from the Auraria Sustainable Campus Program. Yay or nay?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that we're planning to speak with a couple people from ACP, so I was just gonna tag the required people into those, specifically PR, you, whoever else wants to work on it this week. So.
Matt?
I also wanted to reference that we got about, what was like 16 something boxes for donations that we gave to Auraria Sustainability for their free store as well.
Anything out of faculty or staff senate?
I was absent from that
Oh,
yesterday, so Matt has it.
Yeah, and I was there for some of the meeting. Unfortunately, something came up. I'm gonna go back and watch the recording and I'll report back next week.
Perfect, no worries. Anybody with any open floor announcements or updates? Patrick?
Just a question for faculty incentive, maybe from our conversation earlier with President Davidson, seems like there's some concerns rising. Just with support, maybe if you guys can rally and further our connection and unification with the faculty about our students and the arising situations that are coming around from us. We could establish that firm line of teachers and students as a student body relies heavily on our professors.
Can I add something on really quick?
Go ahead, Matt.
Sorry, I think I also froze a second there too. Thank you. So one thing I do want to reference that I did see in the parts I was in the meeting is Gregor was there and talking to them a lot about the immigration stuff, what they should be doing, and talking about undocumented peer training, which I did already reach out to him on that, but due to the nature of what's going on, it sounds like I might not get a full response back from him for a little bit. Because I wanted to see if we could also get involved with that type of training.
On to the advisors for our last 3 minutes. All right, moving on to the advisors. You got 3 minutes. Go.
All
Make
right,
it quick.
Haley. 4 announcements for you. Last call for Day at the Capitol. If anyone is interested in doing that, I asked for an email. Please just send me something directly, and I will make sure I get you connected with the folks who are going to be doing the Day at the Capitol. Please, please, please. I need that. Folks, I need folks to finish their survey for office hours, specifically Matt, Patrick, not to call anyone out, but you do need to do the survey for office hours. Elections, remember elections are coming up. Please, if you're planning on running again, pick up an application. If you know anyone who's interested in doing it, please feel free to encourage them to pick up an application as well. And then finally, Patrick, this is really for you. At some point, you, Armando, and I can get together and talk budget.
All right. Do you have anything?
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
So
No, do you want to use mine?
Sure.
okay. Thank you. So one thing I know that Taylor is meeting with, I think you two,
Right now.
after this to talk about the Stop Campus Hazing policy that we are mandated to implement by July 1st. And so I'm on a group with Taylor and Stephen and several folks from around campus on looking at what that's going to look like. And so I just wanted to let you all know that that is going to be a mandatory thing across the state, but it is something that we would love TSAC's input on. And so you two will talk to him today, but there will be an opportunity that I'd like to bring him in because we're on a timeline and it's pretty quick. So in the next month, I'd like to have Taylor come in to present the policy that we've developed and what we're kind of thinking about in terms of the mandatory trainings and the things that need to happen for both students as well as faculty and staff. So more to come on that, but it's a really important thing that I think is going to impact some folks significantly, and it's a change. So just wanted to offer that, and just wanted to also thank everyone for your advocacy over the past few weeks with everything going on. I know it's been a lot, and I am in the middle of all of it, and it's just been really cool to see how you all come together in support of one another and in support of our students and our community. I think communication and developing a communication strategy on how we're getting information and resources out to students, I think would be a really good way to spend time and energy. And so just want to remind you all of that because there's a lot of good stuff happening, but how are we getting the word out to students is what I'm more concerned about. Yeah, and I think that's where you all come in as really key advocates. So thank you.
All right. With no further announcements or updates, I'm going to go ahead and motion to end this meeting.
Good.
Any objections? They're already out the door. Any abstentions? All right. Have a great weekend, y'all.